understand? And you'll see people like Boko, Corby, Benji, and you'll see people like Pato, and you'll find out that our musical director happens to be Mr. Errol Lynch. I think we got nothing but the best. Would you give the band a round of applause? Would you give the band a round of applause? Would you give the band a round? And 4 beautiful sisters doing some beautiful chorus work for us. We call them the Review Angels. Give them a round of applause. Give them a round. Listen, you know what's my biggest problem? My biggest problem is my fans and them. Last year they come knocking down my door. Black Stallion, Black Stallion. I said, well, what happened? They said, listen this. You know all them other singers that sit down and write a little smut now and then. You mean you can't write one for we? I said, all right. I'm going to write this smut for them. I sit down, I take up my pen, and I take up my paper. I start to write my smut. Play the thing, play. 1983, my fans beg for a favor. I decide to help them, so I write this soca. Last year they come back with a different story. They say they want something smutty about Gino Dorothy. Now on my fans, you know your future depend. So I sit down to write this smut only to please them. But as I take up my pen and my piece of paper, and I write out the first verse, listen what I remember. Oil money come, oil money go, on the pavement and ghetto. When Mr. Divider start to divide the bread equally, I go in and finish the whole damn calypso about Dorothy. How I jam she, how she jam me, how we back, bread and we roll back. But once my people keep fighting for equal share of the cake, wait Dorothy, wait Dorothy, I take up the challenge just to prove to the lot. I decide to show them I could write a smut about this Dorothy woman who come down to the island and we happening with Bachi when we come out the steel band. Look, I done hire 2 girls to put on some short thing. Was to come on stage and show how Dorothy whining. But it's a wrong thing I'm doing. So when I strike up the first note, suppose Jaja punish me with a stroke in my one throat. Because the Ku Klux Klan office still Alabama, and in Brixton, England, my people still under pressure. Anytime I see that South Africans are free, I'm going and finish the whole damn calypso bomb Dorothy. Oh, I jam she, and she jam me. Oh, we back, and we roll back. But once my people keep fighting with so much children life at stake, wait, Dorothy, wait, Dorothy, passing to London, and you're sure to hear it. They just call calypso music, rum music. They say all entertainer today using the culture to help the people plan a better future. In this world today of nuclear and revolution, the calypso man still singing about rum and woman. But I'm just making sure that when they run in the big mouth, it's a Black Stallion music that they talking about. Because them politicians still can form a federation. So much meat in the hole in. Caribbean people still suffering. Anytime I see a true West Indian unity, yes, I go in and finish the whole damn Calypso bomb Dorothy. Oh, she jam me, and I jam she. Oh, we back, and we roll back. But once my people suffering with so much children life at stake, for us is too much of lyrics. So sit down and write smart in this moment of crisis. My head saying yes, but my heart saying no. And I just follow my heart when it comes to writing Kaiso. Now to all my fans who want smart, I'm very sorry. But my pleasure does always come second to my duty. And my duty is to make sure that my people life happy. And anytime that thing happen, we go jam down Dorothy. Because so much of famine in Ethiopia, assassination, I say going on in India. Anytime I don't have to live with them frightful things around me, yes, I go in and finish the whole damn Calypso bomb Dorothy. Oh, I jam she, and she jam me. Oh, we back, and we roll back. But once my people suffering for an equal share of the cake,
the black man himself, Leroy Calise, the Black Stallion. Wait, Dorothy, wait. You know, Dorothy just up in charting and wind up, and they want Stalin to sing about that. He said, no. Oil money come and oil money go, and poor people still in the ghetto. When Mr. Divider start dividing the bread equally, then I'm going to go and wind up on Dorothy. Until then, wait, Dorothy, wait. The Ku Klux Klan man still in Alabama. Famine in Ethiopia. And you want me to wind up on Dorothy. Until there is racial justice in the world, wait, Dorothy, wait. Democracy under threat in Guyana and other places. And all you want me to talk about Dorothy until the opposition and all of us have an equal place at the table and run the country together. Wait, Dorothy, wait. My government cannot distribute $500 US. Every day they're coming up with something new. When we tell them they got to go to the National Assembly for the money, Nandal ask if everything we got to legislate. Then they crawl to the National Assembly. And then when they get there, they realize they can't draw out all the money. They say, next year budget. So people aren't going to get the money till after the budget. And when me government can distribute $100,000, you are telling me I must go and wind up with Dorothy? Until our people can get an equal share of the oil revenue windfall. Wait, Dorothy, wait. Wait, Dorothy, wait. All you see what them Suriname is doing? The island coming till 2028, but the Suriname is already put in the people bank account. Money that coming till 2028. The Suriname is getting a little royalty. They divide it up, put it in an account. In 2018, me party tell the coalition government to do what the Suriname is doing. We said by the time you get to 10 billion barrels, you can give you people $5,000, but start, make it into law. They didn't pay, we no mind. Though the Suriname is showing me what you got to do. And you all telling me I must go and wind up on Dorothy? Wait, Dorothy, wait. Our country in trouble. You can't distribute $100,000 because in the first place you didn't mean to give anybody nothing. If you had any interest in giving people $100,000, you would have put it in the budget. You won't put it in the budget, meaning you had no interest. You read in the tea leaves, and the tea leaves tell you in September that you're going to lose the election. And you say, buy, then WPA buy this, say so. They're defunct. They're defunct, but let me thief the defunct idea. But you can't thief something. You know, me have a friend, I mean, a little boy, he gone thief. Them time the tape recorder, or the 70s, your mama saying your daddy, I sent tape recorder from America. When he gone thief the tape recorder, and he know for walk it. You know what button for Thor? What thing? The PVP thief the idea, and they don't know to walk it. They even know to cheer it out. They know you can go. Damn, they're thieves. Mark on their face. I see my friend Gabriel and them doing some serious analysis about why they can't share. And I love Gabriel. That's why I love when he come on this program. But the simple thing is the people don't know how to work the cash transfer thing because the TV, they have no interest in it. They want to get it to hustle some votes and hustle some money. And so they said we do the thing. But here what happened? We dip on them with an eagle eye and we watch them. So they can't maneuver like they used to do before. So every time they try to run, I will brackle them. Bap, they fall down. They gosso, I will brackle them. They fall down. They also for gosso, I will brackle them. They say $200,000 for household. When I will brackle them there, they say $100,000 per individual. We'll brackle them there. They say when they're gonna get it before Christmas, when we Thief man just buy the thing and sell them quick because your thief stereo, you don't know to work the stereo, it's no good to you. And that is what we are up against. A set of rascals who don't know nothing about nothing. Good evening to you all and welcome to Politics 101. I'm not a comedian. And so I don't like to make fun, but oh Jesus Christ, if this thing wasn't serious, you know, thing for crying, man, a laugh. Me know. We understand that they're sending out an SOS call for Professor Thomas. They're calling in Professor Thomas to come for help them. Well, we are patriots in the WPA, defunct WPA. We are patriots and we are willing to help. So we say, if you all call me the right way, and we go come. But you see, back off, left off. Good evening and welcome to Politics 101. We're in the month of December. It's Christmas month, a season of goodwill. Christ was born on Christmas Day, and his coming was a breath of fresh air to the world. Oh, Jesus Christ. Oh, Jesus Christ. Help us in Guyana. Help us. We were hoping to celebrate your birthday, Jesus, with a little $100,000, a little small piece. But it ain't happening because the people who run in the country ungodly. Ungodly. And they get God. They're born with God, but they throw away God. Because God not like ugly. God not, and they ugly bad. God not like ugly. Good evening. Welcome to Politics 101. I am not a comedian. I am a humble little boy from Buxton who happened to have had some opportunities, and I am using those limited opportunities. Make I watch the time because I don't want to take away GHK Lall time. You all didn't come for me tonight. You all come for GHK Lall. I'd like to thank all of you all who have contributed to our program. It's a season of goodwill, sharing. Jesus was a hell of a chap. You know, he got one fish and one bread. He meet them with and he do his thing. And he gave fish and bread for feed everybody. So in the spirit of Christ, please contribute to our program. Some of you have already done so. God bless you all. And I want God bless more of us. More of us. Good evening. Welcome to Politics 101. All of you are ready. Let's bring in GHK Lall because it's his time tonight. GHK Lall.
Good evening.
And how are you, my brother?
Well, I hear you talking about fish and bread. Good evening, everyone. Month of December, special time for me, you know, Christmas. And I also remember, in addition to the fish and bread, that Jesus fashioned a rope and he beat some people and run them out of the temple. You remember that one?
Thief man then.
Yes. I just turned my father's house into a house of thieves and brigands, and he run them out of the place.
Thank you very much.
And I think, as we share tonight with our brothers and sisters in Guyana and out of Guyana, to where we are scattered, there's so many things that are going wrong here. And to leverage off of what you started out with, we really need to be serious and focused and concentrated and constantly. There's no off switch, because even the little things can't be done in a smooth and dignified manner for our people, old people, young people. You know, if you're thinking about this thing since COVID, which is a couple of years ago, how do we share this money, this patrimony that belongs to everybody, not just somebody? How do we share it? How do we make provisions for that? You have the GRA, you have the NIS. Those are mechanisms. Dr. Hines, you know from the States, and we have a lot of the diaspora watching and listening, how these things work. You have a mechanism, an apparatus in place where the thing flow, untouched by hand, untouched by scampish minds. And so no, they want to put the thing in cash and they want to do it at the last minute, and they want to squeeze the people, or they want to squeeze some of the people. And so you end up with this, what the Americans call SNAFU, SNAFU, situation normal all, and you all finish the FU, right? I mean, that's what it is. You announce thing, And then every day your story changing. And every day you're coming up with a different story, right? About up and about who going to get now and who going to get later and who qualify and who don't qualify. And then you widen the net for your own sinister motives, agenda, right? Why you got to take me photograph or you photograph for little money? Eh? For me money. Why you got to take the front and the back, the barcode of our ID cards for what purpose? For collect 500 US dollar? Were you building? What factory you got you taking this database, this detail from meeting with the photographer you take out there? For do what? For do what with Professor Hines? What we really is this a cash grant? Or is this a cash conspiracy with the election in mind? And I think some things speak for themselves. You can't see Jumbie under every rock and behind every bush. But when you're dealing with scamps, you talk about God in like thief. We got an old saying, I grew up with this as a little boy. Two thief man does make God laugh.
God laugh.
2 dozen does make he cry.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we got. We got 2 dozen of them or more in places of authority, places of decision making. And look what we get. We can't wrap our arms around this thing and say, look, we have some wise men, Christmas, but we got all these Herods, all these Herod Antipas is where Jesus there, is where the light there. And that is what we have here. These chaps here, every time I said to people, every time I write this, when they sit down and think about a policy or something that they've got to share, the first thing they think about it is how much they're in there for we.
Yeah. Yeah.
How much they're in there for we, or how can we use this program, whether it is this caring, this sharing, this money, the provision, what is in it that we can exploit and extract for ourselves? And wherever left for the people, left for the people. And then we make a big speech about it. And these people ain't stupid. You can tell me men who got doctor behind the name and doctor after the name, they may know what they're doing. They blasted well know what they're doing. They very well know what they are doing, ladies and gentlemen, listening to this program and any school-age children. These are the people that we don't want to, I don't want to have anything to do with them. I feel stained just by talking about them. I feel like I'm doing myself so wrong by writing about them. But we have to, because this is what our society demands if we're going to have any form of equity. We can't be frivolous. We got to laugh sometime. Because I'll tell you one thing, I'm not going to allow these guys to drive me crazy. I come here, I just tell people, I come back to Guyana for sheer stress, right? Me come for tech stress. And there's right there. And so, we're in December. People should have been sitting back, leaning back and say, look, it's 100,000. It boiled down to 100. It's better than nothing. And you know what? At least I could look forward to the holiday. I could buy a little chicken. I could put aside a 10. I could call the neighbor over and get a little piece of black cake and a little ginger beer. I could celebrate Kwanzaa. I could get ready for the new year. No splash, no splurge. But we're dealing with a real cluster situation here where everything seems to implode. And now they're running, you got registration sites here, you've got registration sites there. I see opposition MP, correct me here, I think it's Miss Ferguson, who said, why y'all don't, the people got to collect the pension book. It started yesterday. Yesterday. Give the old people, run them through the registration process at the same time.
At the same time, yes.
Right? I hear today some people go and they run them through the process. At least they listen. but it came out of an opposition member's mind, and the good thing it has been followed by somebody. Got to tell you that in October they said, or early November they said, public servants and pensioners are part of the system. They're already in the system. In fact, they're a captive audience. Sure. So why they got to go and register again?
Mhm. Mhm.
Why they got to go and line up or turn up at some registry? Why do policemen, teachers, why do they have you already there? They got a photograph for you. They got what in the Ministry of Home Affairs, the Ministry of Education, and all the other ministries. Yes, they're doing it in house, but why even go to that? You got a payroll. You got a payroll. You got all the names and tins before somebody could get paid, before they could come on board. I mean, I was a public servant for a couple of years, way back. And so that system has to be enhanced. So you know the people. You know the people. But this thing about the photograph, and now I understand from people who actually went, and they're taking the photograph of the front, and then they turn around and take the back. They're scanning, they're absorbing the information in the barcode. And that is ominous. You can't let go the census figure. But look. There's a confluence of developments here. There's a combination of things that are coming to head at the same time. Elections, they're around the corner. You got the census done a good while now back. I think it's 2 years, and you can, for the life of you, come out and say, "Look, this is the number," because you're frightened, and the number tell the story. So now you're coming up for trying to buy some votes, and you come up with this long-winded, torturous process that really, I think, is going to rebound in their faces. And then you bring them and say, "Oh, y'all these who live in New York, you come back here, and I collect the 500,000, the 500 US, and but you have to register. For what purpose I go to again?" And on the last program we met, you said, "This is how the thing will work." And now this registration here and the actual elements of the registration is ringing in my head and say, this not good story. There's something wrong. This not go right here. And that is why I think that the opposition has to be very, very vocal, very vigilant and very vocal here now. The PPP has its back to the wall. It is cornered, and it is not going to stop at any one measure.
GSK, now you've touched on the opposition, and we can bounce back and forth because there are a couple of other things I want us to talk about this cash grant. But you've mentioned the opposition, all right? You yourself have been writing in recent times about the condition of the opposition parties, mainly the AFC and the PNC. There are some of us who are still opposition parties, but we understand that those are the two that your analysts tend to focus on. And then today, the TUC at a press conference said the opposition is not militant enough. I want you to tie your own reflections and analysis of the opposition and against the backdrop of what has gone on. And then today, the TUC coming out and saying that the opposition is unmilitant enough. Talk us through your reflections, especially your recent reflections on the opposition.
I agree fully with the TUC, and I think that people like me shouldn't have been saying it earlier. The TUC should have been there. It's good that they've said it now. For a democracy to work, for a democracy to be vibrant, you need an opposition that holds the government's feet to the fire. That's a given. I think that the opposition has been too passive. I think that the opposition has been too distant, if I may, from it has lacked visibility. It has lacked potency. All right, we might say they got money and they get picked off because the people got all the money in the world. But I think that an opposition in this crunch time, where its people where the Guyanese people, in a broader perspective, are struggling to survive daily. 40% of them at a minimum, if not more, and most of them are your people. You've got to, well, you got to be up in arms. You got to be up in people's face. You got to be flooding the media. You got to mainstream, and I don't know about social media. You got to be using the tools that are in use right now to get your messages across, and to pound at the government relentlessly using a combination of truth, thoroughness, temperateness, and thoughtfulness. You've got to be wise about this. I mean, everybody wants to go after Exxon. I think they should leave that to me. And the fact is, the opposition, we, I think its supporters has to hear its voice more, because when the supporters hear its voice, then the government hears its voice, whether it wants to or not. I would say something on this ear that really hurts me to say, but I've got to say it. When I mention certain names in the opposition people start cuss. They start cuss. Don't mention them names to me. I say, but this is the reality. This is the story. This is what is there. And this is what has to be worked with. The people are irate. These are not PPP people. So I think that the circumstances are ripe. People are dispirited. People are frustrated because they see their wealth being shared, and they're being overlooked and bypassed. And they're saying enough is enough, and this has gone on for too long. And I agree with that. The government has made no bones about reaching out into the broader Guyana. It talks about one Guyana, into the broader Guyana, and say, we are one. We are truly one. And this is how this thing is going to work. This is how these programs, there's not this big skew towards sugar, and whole sets of communities are abandoned to their own devices. So when the TUC, which has labor as it's calling, can come out in December, early December, and say the opposition needs to be more militant. Depends on how you define militant. I agree with it. It depends on how you define militant. There are shades of militancy. Do you start low and do you escalate? Whatever you do, you must be able to control that militancy. You must not let your opponent dictate it for you. You and here's this: haves and have-nots, who are in the majority, almost exclusively the have-nots. We started out with Black Stalin. We can't talk about, I don't even want to talk about cricket and football. I'm a big NFL guy, a big college football guy. Cricket has kind of faded with me when the West Indies started to fade. All sports, as a matter of fact. But really, my heart is not into that. And as you know, Dr. Hines, my hat is not in any ring with any political party that I am contesting anything. But I am doing my part. I'm doing my part as a voice out of the Roman Catholic Church that fought for social justice a while back, when you were fighting for social justice, and you are still fighting for social justice. I'm a late comer to this thing, and let's let that be on the table. But the fact is, there needs to be more voices from my side of the equation, and the opposition needs to to take the lead in really, really pounding the pavement, really being that voice for the voiceless, and and representing some sort of potency. Now, in terms of an actual thing, I think that the opposition and the opposition leader erred, however slightly or immensely, some may say, when he said, well, look, we're going to put a pause on street protests or going out on the street. I think you've got to consider very carefully how you are going to use that and if you are going to take that away. He advanced certain reasons, infiltration, money, and can't compete, and so on and so forth. And but I still think, notwithstanding all of that, that I have to use what I have at my disposal to let the world know, let the Guyanese people know, let the civil society know, let the world know at this time of plenty, relative plenty, that there are people in Guyana that are not part of the table. They are not in the room. They don't have a. They're not even in the room. So we cannot even begin to talk about a seat around the table. And that has to change. And that has to change. And that message has to be pounded day after day. And I thought that you got to be in the media. You got to maximize the media. And different medias have different audiences. You've got to lead that. You've got to seize that ground. You've got to be on the street. You've got to keep the pressure in the communities. You've got to rally your people. Now I know these things take money, but I'll tell you, you're gonna have to find it. You are gonna have to find it. And because like the government, the opposition has a sizable proportion of people in the diaspora, I think that that could be had. And I have had people tell me that we have offered to raise funds, and they haven't been taken up on that. So militancy for the opposition, I think the call is timely. Uh, It could have been earlier, but we'll take it now, because this government is about total control. It's about total dominance. And somewhere along the line, something has got to get in its face. Something has got to give here. And I think a militant opposition is properly harnessed, wisely, wisely utilized, is part of the key.
GHK Lall here weighing in on the issue of the opposition, and that's been an ongoing debate. At the center of it is, of course, leader of the opposition, Aubrey Norton, who publicly took street protest as we know it off the table. Of course, Aubrey would be very quick to say that he did not take protests off the table, but he took a certain kind of street protest off the table. The jury's still out. The debate goes on. It comes back. The TUC has come out today and it has weighed in on that issue. The fact of the matter is that in our part of the world, when we talk about opposition, protest has always been very much synonymous with opposition, and street protests is something very Caribbean, very Guyanese. And so therefore the debate continues. GSK, let's shift slightly away from political parties and begin. Let's talk about civil society. It's a relatively new concept. What it means is that non-governmental organizations, as I usually tell my students, if you have a political space, part of it is for the government, part of it is for opposition parties, but there's part of that space in which people can organize outside of political parties, outside of the government, in what I call civil society space. In a country like Guyana, civil society is quite problematic because we are a bifurcated society and we have very deep opinions on both sides. I usually like to say, look, in a place like Guyana, you can both be partisan and non-partisan at the same time. In my own life, I try to practice that in the sense that I am very clear about I belong to a political party and I support that political party. And if that political party is part of the opposition as we are now, I'm an opposition person. But there's a line at which I say, I draw it here, right? Political parties have their limitations. There are certain things political parties are just not going to do. There are certain things that political parties are just not good at doing. And so, therefore, a part of me that believes in certain things, that you have to deal with it. You know, I just taught today in my class Bob Marley's song, Zimbabwe, in which he said, every man's chest, there beats the heart, right? And then later on, he said, Africa, unite, unite, um, and liberate Zimbabwe. So on the one hand, he's partisan. He's calling on African people to unite. But on the other hand, he makes a universal statement, which is that in every man's chest beats a heart. He's basically saying all human beings are equal. So he talks partisanship, African people unite, and then he says, but there is a universal principle that we are all equal. And so I think even if there is not a civil society in Guyana that is quote unquote not on either side of the political divide, because in Guyana, whether you're on one side or the other, people put you on one side. GHK Lall criticizes the government, he gotta be PNC, he gotta be AFC, he gotta be opposition, right? He criticizes the opposition and, he gotta be PPP and so on. So people, whether you like it or not, put you in these silos. But I think the point I'm making is that there is a civil society instinct in our society. All right? I grew up hearing, people say, me not like advantage taking. And even if your child is taking advantage on somebody else's child, you step in. You may not say it in public, but when you go home, you're wrong. You should not buy, right? So I'm saying there is a civil society instinct in all of us in Guyana. And that is why I believe there is a civil society in Guyana. Probably not in the classic sense of what civil society means in Western society, but in ours. Take your analysis of the role that civil society should play in Guyana from against the backdrop of my attempt there to kind of locate civil society in Guyana.
Well, civil society is this creature of convenience. It's also a creature, an entity of power if it's well constituted. A functioning civil society has many components, and common sense, labor, the church, the community. It's across the board. It's got special interests. It's got national interests. Civil, and that's just the surface that I've scratched there. In this country, the church has to play a bigger role. Labor has to play a bigger role. What is happening? We have these splinters, and that has been to the disadvantage of civil society. The media, you use the word bifurcated, which infers, which means two. It's multi-segmented. It's multi-segmented because money is there to steer people this way, and you've got fewer and fewer left that can be called professional and independent and neutral and all of that business. Civil society has to have a vision of what it wants for the civil space in which it operates. It has to have a vision of the kind of society. You mention that even when it's our own child. I think we have that streak within us. We all do, whether it's a PPP man, PNC, with the worst of us, the best of us. You have that streak in you, and I call it conscience. You call it a basis, a standard. I don't like textbooks. I've read too many textbooks in my life, too many theories and concepts. What does real life teach us? What does our life teach us? The experiences we have had, good and bad. And how do we rise above those? And that is where a civil society comes in. It looks at the government, it looks at the opposition, and it looks at the broader society away from the partisanship, ideally, and says, this is what we want. This is what we aspire to for all Guyanese. We are not joining the political fray. We are not necessarily above it, but we are certainly close enough to it to, to have a contribution that should count. That should count. And I think, given a society as, shall we say, razor thin, razor sharp, and deadlocked as Guyana, and as deadlocked, I didn't use the word polarized, as deadlocked as Guyana, civil society should not be the group or those John the Baptist type of people, those isolated voices that get crushed by both sides. You're a PPP man, you're a PNC man, because at one time or the other, you are saying something that earns their disfavor, that makes you disreputable in their eyes. Civil society has to be fearless. Civil society has to be conscientious. Civil society has to be ethical. We can't come here and look to undermine organization ABC because we are looking to weaken it so we can strengthen where our hearts really are, which is either the PPP or the PNC. It ain't going to work. I mean, one person may break away or one person may sell out. You know what happens to these programs. We have a topic. We are trying to flesh it out. And you've got people throwing their darts. They're throwing their darts. At least they're doing so openly, maybe under an anonymous name, a false name, as we say, a fake name. But in civil society, we can't afford that because our society is so tightly knit. Civil society, it has to have these pieces. Each body has to put its weight. It has to be genuine in its objective. It has to have a vision that is national and that is truly non-partisan. Look at this group. Look, extract from real life. ANUG, a political group, mind you, not a civil society group, a political group, folks. And they said, we are going to be different from the PPP and the PNC. Good. Good for you. And then we have this joinder and all of that.
Mhm.
And one person ends up in parliament. Good Lord. Good God. And you cannot have the decency for when you 3 months done for Lego the thing. Then how can I trust you around $30 billion or $30? How? Or anybody of that. This is the understanding from which we proceeded. This is the idea on which we were founded. I'm talking civil society terms now, but within a
Yeah,
political
yeah, yeah.
reality. And I want to make this very, very simple here. And that is where civil society is vulnerable. In that it's people like me and you. You are a political scientist. You're a political practitioner. You're a political historian and person. So I don't think you can shake that. I don't know what I am except that I'm a citizen. I damn well know what I am, and it is that I will speak my mind. I will explore my conscience. Where do you stand on this? How do you see this? And if it's got to be a one-man civil society or a group in me, then so be it. Here's the story here. How do we differentiate ourselves from the political wrangling, bickering, and treachery that has been so much part of our history? I think this is where civil society can make its mark, and it can be a mark of distinction. Church, labor, media, community. I'm missing some pieces here, and it's not coming to me. It's not flowing as I would like. Academia.
Academia, the professional
So,
organizations.
yes, Let me say this to you. You know this. Your life has been in academia. I've spent 11 years in higher education. Here's my story. Where is the vibrancy in our student body in this country?
There you go. There you go.
Civil society. Come on.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is where the energy is because there's the youthful blood there. The blood is thinner, and the need for speed or the patience is just not there. We do not want to live under this kind of setup. We've got the world at our feet and the world in front of our eyes, and we want to have these things done now and done this way. What happened to our students? Oh yes, I hear about valedictorians and 3,000 or how many thousand. Wonderful, wonderful folks. I tip my hat, I bow, courtesy, all of that business. But what are we producing here? Zombies? What are we producing here? Robots who come in, open a book, read a book, write an exam, done. What kind of citizen are we producing here? I mean, where is the intellectual curiosity and the ferment that leads to a different society, not necessarily a better one, but a different society? Where's the thinking outside of the box? Where's the thinking that says, where are people reading and being familiar with what are the bitter realities of life in Guyana, where everybody is talking so beautifully, so deliriously about us? And we here who are living in Guyana, we can't buy bread. We can't buy a slice of black pudding or a little parcel of chana. What is that? I got to write about this, David. I don't know when last you. I know you come here frequently and you spend some time in the long holiday. This thought occurred to me. I'm driving through Georgetown, and I'm saying, man, have we got a lot of drugstores? We've got a lot of pharmacies. I mean, some streets you go, you've got two of them, and there they are. There they are. Now, in the country area, there may be a list. And why do I bring that up? We spend hundreds of billions of dollars on healthcare, and so we're supposed to have free drugs there. Why do we so that means when these pharmacies spring up, they're doing business. There's a demand for their products. It means therefore that what people are getting in the public healthcare system is not enough, and they've got to go there. So therefore our people have got to come out of their pockets with money that they don't have to care for their health. This is where civil society, the professionals, the legal professional, and it's some things are coming up, the medical professional, the academics are all part of a group or many groups, human rights groups, environmental rights groups, and they are there and they are concerned about the quality of life and the standard of living that they have during their time. And so they want to see that change. They have ideas, they have recommendations, and they have some pressure. They have some energy to develop some pressure. This is what we need in this society. But everybody, most people are, many people, and there's a few that have resisted, who have responded to the cajolery and the appeals and the financial incentives. And so things fragment, and we get the norm, the abnormality becomes the norm and continues. And so we could have the vice president and the attorney general ranting and raving, and the president in the forefront. And instead of us improving, we're just degrading ourselves.
GHK Lall here touching on the human side of our society, which, we political people often do not pay attention to. Bob Marley said in one of his songs, Slave Drive, I think, every time I hear the crack of the whip, my blood runs cold. They brutalize our very soul. And referring to slavery, that slavery was not just a physical thing. It was a way in which they brutalized the soul of people, mess with you, so that later on, Marcus Garvey would say we have to emancipate ourselves from mental slavery. One of my fears, GHK, after listening to you there and listening to others, is that, people think that when you change a government, it's just to get rid of one set of people or thing. But what the PPP is doing to Guyana is that they're brutalizing the souls of Guyanese. And that you will change the government, and I think the government has to change. But you will inherit a brutalized society, a society whose soul is brutalized. There's a way that, look at our drivers, how they drive on the streets. It is not that they don't know that if you do this, you are going to kill yourself. If you drive in a certain way, they're rational people, they know it. But there's a way in which the society brutalizes them to the point where they lose control of what it is to be normal on a given day. And that's part of what the PPP is doing. One of the reasons I get angry at some people who talk about crossover votes and the PPP is doing this. You just don't go into people's community and throw $40,000 on a fried rice to them and tell them, come and vote for me. It's a dehumanization. And they may go and vote for you. But what you have done is that you have reduced them. You have made them lose confidence in their own sense of humanity. You may get their votes. But after a time, they become so mentally and mentally and intellectually disheveled that they will turn on you. And that is where we are going down. And I think you have hit the nail on the head. What passes for politics? Really, Jack Dio is the vice president. And that man sit up on there every Thursday. And intelligent questions are put to him. He does not answer them intelligently. He just cusses people out. And young people who are on the net will run into that. And for them, it may be entertainment. But in a sense, what that does over time is that it normalizes a certain kind of conversation, interaction, communication in the society, because he is an agent of socialization. He's an agent of socialization. And so the way in which those people are messing up the minds. I was a small boy when Burnham was there, and I grew up in a household and a village, and at the time where Burnham's excesses were challenged. But you always say, but my God, even when you oppose Burnham, my God, he speaks well. He's a, so you're struggling against him. You're saying, I am against your overreach. But he speaks well. He's a visionary man. He brings in national. So the point I am making is that even though you fought against Burnham's excesses, he did not make you lose confidence in him as a human being. And I don't mind fighting Jack Dio's political excesses, but I find myself coming up against him as a human being and the kind of example that he's setting for my country. I think it's unparalleled in our history. Unparalleled. That man is destroying the soul of our country. And he's not alone because he's part of a government. And the way in which East Indians are forced to excuse it. And Africans are forced against their will to embrace it. And Amerindians. And so he ends up screwing up the soul of all of us. GHK Lall.
Well, when you beat up on a people and they realize or accept their impotency, their powerlessness, they then beat up on one another. And the monster that you have created in time, maybe not that time, is going to fester and fester and undermine that society.
Yes,
And your time will come.
that's right.
I have looked, well, I don't really look at him, but every now and again I'm compelled by circumstances to look at some snippets. And I'm saying, forget about Vice President Dr. Hines. I am saying this is a former head of state.
State.
This is not the head of the Chamber of Commerce. This is not the head of some club, some prestigious club. This is a former head of state, and in actual fact, still a head of state. Still a head of state, but we'll not go into that. I think that adds a little flavor to our conversation and where I'm going. As he goes, his people goes.
That's it. That's it. That's it.
His people goes, and so we have close to two-fifths of a society that are drawn against their will into a cauldron, into a pressure cooker that they themselves are powerless to resist or cannot summon the will to resist, right? People tell me, oh, you're knocking your head against a wall. I said, well, then it's either the wall gonna give or me head gonna give,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
I believe I'm here for a purpose and I have to fulfill the will of God, right? And I got my own destiny. We all have ours. That's my belief. And whatever that is, let it be, O Lord, but let me do it well. So here's the story. I would like for our brother, this may make some people cringe, and I am not preaching here, I'm being real. I'd like for our brother, Dr. Irfan Ali, Dr. Bharat Jagdeo, to develop an instinct to listen to blank out all the noise, all the political fervor, frenzy, and ask themselves, this Guyana over which you preside, what are you doing to it? How are you going about managing it? Forget about cash grant and all the other things for a moment. For a moment, what example am I setting for the people when I shout at others, when I berate others, when I go around questions and dissemble? I mean, politics is dissembling and dissemble so as to evade. What example am I setting for the students at the University of Guyana, for young public servants, that it is okay for this to be? Is he unconsciously or consciously desensitizing the Guyanese population to the point where it becomes numb? It becomes so jaded that they accept the abnormal as the norm. And then they embrace that. And so that obscenity is perpetuated. Look at our society. I'm glad you mentioned about roads. I put that in the cash grant. And I said maybe Dr. Singh, helicopters from home to work.
Yeah.
But he should familiarize himself, drive to work, and see what goes on our roads.
Roads. Yeah.
This is our civilization. This is an emblem of our civilization. If we treat each other on the roads like that, then what does that say about us as civilized people, as spiritual people, as people who are the most talked about in the world presently for
Yeah.
the last two,
Yeah.
3, 4, 5 years? Surely we have to have some more self esteem about us. Dr. Jagdev has to have some self-respect about himself that I can't continue along this way. I cannot, everybody cussing, so I must cuss, or I am going to set the stage so everybody going to cuss one another. What sort of cacophonous society are we going to have? Are we going to be a nation of men or a nation of mobs? I mean, that's what it comes down to. Thursday afternoon, that's not a press conference, that's a press brawl.
Oh, that's
It's
what
not
it
a
is.
circus, it's not a zoo. Those things are, I mean, look, man, have some self respect, Dr. Barat, about what you're doing here. What I mean, you're playing politics and you're playing to the crowd and your audience and your captive people and whomever else. But at the end of the day, I'm sure that the public relations people, or whatever you call them, public affairs, political affairs people at the US, the ABC countries are listening to that program. They have to listen to that program, I
Yes,
would think,
yes.
as a matter of, well, how does this impact our presence and our business in this country? And what do we share back to their respective governments about what is going on here? I mean, look, somewhere along the line, some standards have fallen. You used the word, and I was waiting to see what word you would have come up, and you said it wasn't disheveled. It was what? Not shredded, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Is yeah. I mean, the whole thing has broken down here,
yeah.
where people are perhaps even applauding what is going on. You stick it to them. You stick it to them, brother. And are we going to talk about one Guyana in the next breath from the other side of our mouth? Something which I notice he has not really been keen on,
No,
right? He's not
no.
being zealous on, because that might be to his disadvantage. Well, I think one Guyana is a farce anyway. But the fact of the matter is that here it is. We have a former head of state. Every Thursday, he holds court. And what we have is this utter degradation of what we as Guyanese feel is a vital component of a society that is healthy. Why can't the vice president, a man of such stature in his party and in this country, and he has that, not recognize the role he has to play and be responsible about it and be honest about it? There's a time to play politics. There's a time
Yeah,
for leveraging and marshalling and lobbying and all of that. But all the time there must be that simple decency that separates man from beasts. And I think he has lost. He's really has lost
yeah,
that
yeah. He has lost it.
recognition of the dividing line.
Yeah, 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 yeah. But, Gabriel, you and I, generations before us, generation after us. It's an unspoken rule about how you speak about women.
Yeah.
I grew up in a village. I would, later on in life, when I became an adult, I would know that they were, you know, women of the night
Yeah.
who
Uh-huh.
emanated from my village. I never knew when I was growing up because those things were spoken about in hushed tones because you didn't speak about women of any station in life a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up with that. And
Mm-hmm.
I may take some liberty and abuse Ali and abuse Jack Dio, but I won't abuse Gail Teixeira or the women in the because I grew up feeling that
Mm-hmm.
women are out of bounds when it comes to
Yeah.
certain kind of abusing.
Off
All
limits.
right.
Yeah.
But that man sits there every week and refers to women in the opposition as low life and it is just un-Guyanese. But
Yeah.
he's turning it. He's normalizing our society. What are young men who are listening to that? What respect would they have for women? I am not saying that there were not times when we were disrespectful to women, but it wasn't knowingly because you get your ass cut. You know, we grew up in a society in which we said women woman and picnic out of bounds. You want to take the liberty with man, not women. But that man is thinking, and it's messing up our country, And as political people, we have to take cognizance of it because those are the unseen consequences of political action. We see the seen consequences, but the unseen consequence, it mess with our people's minds. GHK Lall, your closing thoughts.
Well, there's a chain reaction there. I think, look, we're in December, season of peace and goodwill to men. I think I try, and I don't know. You people like you and others, including the critics, have to tell me how well I do that. I try to be civilized to people. You talked about women. Let's go backwards. I mean, we couldn't raise we voice. Forget about getting to the disparaging or insulting word. We couldn't raise we voice and say, well, you're eye black, or you're mad. You're mad. I mean, you get it, and forget about corporal punishment. You get physically battered, right? In the house. In
Yes.
the house. So that instilled a discipline in you that you never forget. Here. I mean, you said it, and we are human, and sometimes we lose. We lose control. We are pushed to that extreme. But if you got some God in you, if you have some standards in you, if you had some grooming instilled in you, and you have your own your own modicum of respect when you bring all these things together for whoever it is, somebody from another race, somebody from another economic stratum, somebody from a different gender or a different orientation. You might slip up every now and again in a moment in the heat of anger or whatever. But here's this: it does not become a pattern.
That's it.
It
That's
does
it.
not become a
It's
characteristic,
Yeah.
right? That and after a time that you come to relish, that you come to seemingly relish, or you got to keep with this program because to do otherwise, you are fearful of losing, what is it, popularity, traction, relevance? I don't know. If I've got to depend, Dr. Hines, and to you, my fellow Guyanese, on being malevolent or being polemical, then you might as well go and read books or write books or retire to some some island and ponder the facts of life or something. But let's go back to where we started and touch quickly on those. The Trade Union Congress said the opposition should be more militant. I think it should pay heed. I think that is a timely call. I think that is a vitally necessary attribute presence that we need in this country under very, very controlled circumstances. I think it is doable. I think that should happen, and it should have started happening already. Cash grant. I think that the cash grant was poorly conceived. It's poorly planned, it's poorly rolled out. Every day, today alone, people send me about 4 or 5 messages about here and there and wherever and whatever, and it's being executed. The reports are coming in, and I'll sift through that for another time or another avenue somewhere. Now, one more thing I want to say before I go, and I'll cut it short. The opposition made a call or said that there should be involvement in procurement and state boards. And let's talk just procurement. Procurement is hundreds of billions of dollars out of our budget. Hundreds of billions of dollars. It started at 1.146 and it ended up at 1.271 trillion dollars. Trillion dollars. The bulk of it, over 50%, is for procurement of one kind of business or the other. Here's this. The thing is riddled riddled with corruption. It starts at the tender board, it goes the oversight boards, national, regional. It's a public secret. It's who's locked out, who's favored, who's paid back, who kicks back, and so on and so forth. I think that an opposition presence is that eyes and ears, that balancing force that says, let us have that. So we now can not just only talk that people making up story. We can say that it's happening right and that it's being stopped right there from happening. But there's a fear that the baby party can rock up and have to come to an end if you put an opposition presence there. That's why I heard Dr. Jack there talk about obstructionism and
Mhm.
mischief
Mhm.
and whatever. He got a ready answer, but he knows what he's shielding. I think if you really want a better Guyana, if you want some level of honesty, you're not going to write about corruption, some level of honesty in procurement, which is the biggest segment fraction of your budget, you've got to have civil society and opposition presence to maybe not, as the man said, the executive member, I think is Mr. Mahi Paul, one or two. We're not going to change the decision, but we're there. We're
Yes.
going to have some input. And it said that this is what the now opposition did when it was there, it extended the invitation. I think that that has to happen. If the government is really serious about stamping out corruption, if it's really serious about clean governance and clean leadership, here's an opportunity to reach across to the. Everything does not have to deteriorate to a beat down and a cost down and a kick down and a shove down. And that is what Dr. Jagdale seems to relish to the disadvantage and to the detriment of this society. With that, I say thank you for having me. Good night to everyone, and the best of Christmas and Kwanzaa, whether you get money or not, wherever you are. Good
We'll
luck.
try to make the
Yeah.
best of it until we see you
Yes.
next month.
Yes.
Well, happy holidays, as you say,
Yes.
happy Kwanzaa, and
Yes.
we survive. We
Yeah.
survive
Yeah.
to face
Yes.
another day, and
Yeah.
in trying to make our country the
Better.
place
Yeah.
the place that we want to.
Yeah.
Political contestation has its limits.
Yeah.
It has its limits. At the end of the day, we want a country that we live together and that we can disagree politically but live as human beings.
Yeah.
Human
Yeah.
beings, because we have human beings before we became voters.
Yeah.
And that is what we are losing. This PPP is prepared to trade our humanity for votes and political advantage and so on. You know, we have work to do. My brother, thank you very much as usual for coming here and raising this conversation always to a level as some of our viewers are saying tonight. The conversation tonight is deep. And
Thank you.
and I am glad about that, because when I go, I want you all to say that I was politically combative, but I cared. I
Yeah.
cared
Yeah.
about human beings.
Yes.
I
Yes.
cannot, it cannot be otherwise. For
Yeah.
me, for my generation, for our generation, because, because Professor Nettleford said, all we have is ourselves.
Yes.
Governments come and governments go, but we
Yeah.
still have to deal with the challenges of life.
Yes.
And when we take that away from people, we take away their humanity. Thank you, my brother.
God bless. Goodbye.
Thanks.
Thank you.
And to you, the audience, thanks so much. There are some evenings that we do it differently. Tonight, this evening was it was one such evening where we didn't do the red meat. We did another kind of meat, because the challenges we face in Guyana is saving the very soul of our country. They brutalize our very soul. And every time I hear the crack of the whip, my blood runs cold. Oh my God, We're a prisoner of starvation, prisoner of illiteracy. And we have to break out of that prison. So our struggle is to remove a government, but it's also to remove the curse that these people have put on our country. At the end of the day, I want to live in a country of people with conscience, driven by their conscience, not driven by political expediency, driven by your conscience. They can cuss me every day and say that I love black people, and I do. But the day black people put their hands on Indian people or Amerindian people, apart with you all. I love black people. I love what is wonderful about blackness. But the PPP is trying to turn our beauty into an ugliness. And that is why I'm fighting, standing at the gate every day and saying, not black people, not black people, not black people. We have been through too much for these people to come now and to corrupt us, to use the young people language. And even though some of you want to be corrupt, you all want to play the game, I think we have to stand at the gate and say, no, I am jealous of black dignity. And I would not let Jack Dion them come in and to mess up black people, which is what they are after. Because when they mess up black people and they're gone, it's we in the black community who have to deal with the shit and clean it up. In the abundance of water, the fool is thirsty. Robert, Nestor, Marley, I love you all unconditionally, but not uncritically. We aim to be good citizens. Good citizens. Good citizens. Every man got a right to decide his own destiny. And in this judgment day, there's no partiality. Until tomorrow night, we're going to be doing it again. And we're keeping it real. Real. Because I don't want my people to be tricked by mercenaries. Brother, you're right. You're so right. I don't want my people to be tricked by mercenaries. I don't want my people to be contrary. Until tomorrow night.